Cool. I'm going to get started. Thank you everyone for being here. Again, just one more time, please use the Q&A feature if you have any questions. We'll also be saving some time at the end. This is the Civic Innovation Core Summer 2021 information session. We're super excited to give y'all some more information about our program and answer any questions. So thank you again for being here. This is our team by way of introduction. I'm Ariana Soto. I'm Coding It Forward's Director of Strategic Initiatives. Also on the call is Rachel. I will let her quickly introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm Coding It Forward's Executive Director and also one of our co-founders.
Thanks, Rachel. And Chris is one of our co-founders and Director of Operations. He is not on the call, but this is him for all of you. Wonderful. This is what we'll be covering today. We'll give you a little bit of a lowdown on the core program details, eligibility, an update about COVID and how that will affect our program perks, which includes professional events and community building, and give you a little bit more information on our application process. So application timeline, the criteria we use for review, and kind of what our interview process will look like. So again, if you have any questions, we will be answering those for you. So here is a little bit about the Civic Innovation Core. The Civic Innovation Core is a paid 10-week internship mobilizing young technologists to create civic impact in cities and states from coast to coast. It is Coding It Forward's newest program. Some of you may be familiar with the Civic Digital Fellowship, which is a similar program, but with federal government agencies. And this is the first year that Coding It Forward will be bringing technologists to state and local government across 4 different positions: software engineering, data science, design, and product management. We will talk a little bit more about what each of those entails in a second, but we are super excited to get this newest program off the ground and bring students all across the country to kind of innovate and bring their tech skills to government on the state and local level. The dates of the program are June 14th to August 20th. Again, it is a 10-week internship program. You are expected to be a full-time intern committed to the program, approximately 40 hours a week for those 10 weeks. Unfortunately, we cannot make any exceptions to that. So please be aware that it is a full-time internship opportunity. And these are some of the partners we will be working with this summer: Austin, Boston, Charlotte, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, San Jose, Utah, the state of California, and the state of New Jersey. We are super excited to be working with the teams in these places to bring students to work with them this summer. So that is a little bit more about our program. These are the areas of practice that I mentioned earlier. If you have software engineering skills for the projects that we are looking for, these skill sets would look something like web development, full stack engineering, app development, cloud computing, cybersecurity. I'm not going to run down the list. You can see the slides and we'll send them out afterwards. But we also recruit data scientists, product managers, and designers. So when you submit your application, you can preference which areas of practice you would prefer. We give you 2 options, I believe. So first preference and second preference. And that'll kind of help us match you to the program that you are, the project that you would be best suited for. And as the slide says, be prepared to wear multiple hats. Our core members working on projects, you may be a software engineer, but you may be required to use some product management skills. So successful core members will kind of be flexible and adaptable and able to kind of work in other spaces if necessary. Here's some COVID-19 updates on our program. Coding It Forward and our host offices have made the joint decision to have all Civic Innovation Core members work remotely in the summer of 2021. So this will be a fully remote program, and we are well equipped and excited to provide a remote program this summer. We have done it before with our Civic Digital Fellowship program. So our team is well equipped to provide a really robust Civic Innovation Core experience for everyone involved. Our team believes that a fully remote program is the safest and most equitable option due to continued community spread, uncertainty about vaccine distribution, and the new strains of the COVID virus. So the entirety of this summer's program will be entirely remote. So please be aware of that as you are applying. There will be no changes to this decision. This is our final decision and will be how we run the program this summer. Here are some requirements. These are the criteria that you must meet to be eligible to apply for the Civic Innovation Corps. US citizenship or work authorization. This criteria is a bit different from our federal program for those who have maybe looked into that program or applied previously. Anyone authorized to work in the United States is eligible to apply. So there is not a citizenship requirement. There may be some placements that require US citizenship, but there will be projects that do not. So anyone eligible to work in the US is eligible to apply. Please be aware, however, that we are unable to sponsor visas, so Coding It Forward cannot sponsor a visa for this program. Educational enrollment, applicants must be enrolled in or a recent graduate of a 2 or 4 year institution, boot camp, or certificate program. If you are a recent graduate, it has to be December 2020 or after, and those are strict guidelines. For those who took time off during the 2020-21 academic year due to COVID, if you are enrolling in the fall of 2021, you are eligible to apply. And then the final criteria, location, applicants must be residing in the United States for the duration of the internship. So again, anyone authorized to work in the US is eligible to apply, but you must be located in the US for the duration of the internship. This allows for better management of kind of time zone differences and for you to be online when our host offices are online and to really experience the full Civic Innovation Corps program alongside your peers. So you must be located in the US to participate. For anyone that has questions about what to do if you applied for the Civic Digital Fellowship, everyone must start a new application for the Civic Innovation Corps. So you're welcome to reapply as if you had, if you applied for the Civic Digital Fellowship, you are allowed to apply for the Civic Innovation Corps. The first step you need to take is starting a new application in SurveyMonkey, which you would be familiar with if you applied for our fellowship. So yes, you can apply if you already applied for the Civic Digital Fellowship. That being said, our application will ask you if you applied to the fellowship. If you did not, just click no, no need to do anything else. If you did apply for the fellowship, please select yes, and this will kind of allow the application to tailor to you, and you'll be directed to a shortened version of the Civic Innovation Corps application. So we'll save you a little bit of time, so you're not repeating some things that will be the same between the two applications. And we will need you to fill out new information that our team needs from you. So we'll let you know about the next steps after reviewing your application, but we want those who applied to the Civic Digital Fellowship to please be aware that the Civic Innovation Corps timeline is later than that of the fellowship. So our decision timelines are not the same. The timeline will be substantially later than that of the fellowship. So you are allowed to apply, but be aware of that timeline difference. And also, an offer for the Civic Digital Fellowship does not mean you will receive an offer for the Civic Innovation Corps. So just because you're in one part of our pipeline for the fellowship does not mean you will make it to that same part of the pipeline in the Civic Innovation Corps. So the decision up to you. You are welcome to apply, but please be aware of these criteria and stipulations. Here's a little bit about the perks of being a Civic Innovation Corps member. You'll see in this Zoom, actually, my face. It is a screenshot of a Zoom book club that we did with our Civic Digital Fellows and hope to do with Civic Innovation Corps members. But it's just an example of the programming that we provide. A little more about some of the benefits. So some of the benefits of being a Civic Innovation Corps member: you'll be paid for your hard work. So Every core member will receive a competitive stipend. Undergraduates, boot camp, or certificate program grads will receive $6,000 stipend, while graduate students will receive a $7,000 stipend. You'll be working on products and services that residents interact with every day. Some of the projects that have been submitted for people to be working on include data analysis and visualization of economic recovery data sets in Miami to COVID-19 eviction analysis in Los Angeles. So we're really excited about the different projects that our host offices have already kind of been submitting to us. And if you are a core member, you will be a part of tackling those projects this summer. And then you will also have the opportunity to learn and grow. Core members will be a part of a tight-knit community of passionate technologists, and you'll be able to participate in core-specific programming that is specifically designed for state and local contexts. So that's a little bit to look forward to and the benefits that you would get as a Civic Innovation Core member this summer. And then last but certainly not least, we want to give you a little bit more understanding of what our application process will look like and what you can expect in the weeks/months ahead if you were to apply for the Civic Innovation Core. So timeline, here are some important dates that you should be keeping in mind. The application recently opened and is closing on February 28th. So if you are planning to apply, please get that application in no later than February 28th. We will not be extending the deadline. We are working on a pretty tight timeline for this new program, so please get your application in no later than February 28th. It closes at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. Between applications closing and early March, Coding It Forward team will give an initial review of the application. From that initial review, you could either get rejected or you will be offered a video interview by Coding It Forward. The Coding It Forward team will be doing interviews from March 7th to mid-March. This is a behavioral style interview to understand if you'd be a good fit for the Civic Innovation Core. After that interview, you could also be rejected, or you could go on to an interview with one of our host offices. Those will be happening in late March. Someone from one of our host office teams will do a second round interview with you. That's a good place to highlight your technical skills, the capacity to kind of work on the project that that you're being matched for, and ask the team a little bit more about what their team is like, what the project would be like, what it would be like to work with their office. So in between kind of the video interview and that agency interview, Coding It Forward refers candidates to projects, and that's the project you'll be interviewing for. If you are not selected by a host office, you'll be moved back into the applicant pool for consideration on other projects. And then, or the host office will select you and then you'll be given an offer. So the Coding It Forward team, in short, plans to extend final offers for the Civic Innovation Core by the end of March. So that is kind of the timeline we are working with. Again, applications close February 28th. And this is the timeline that you can expect. So for those who applied for the fellowship, as was mentioned previously, this is a much later timeline than we are currently working with for the Civic Digital Fellowship. But that is a timeline that you can expect as an applicant to the Civic Innovation Core. And again, we'll answer any questions. I know that's a bit of a complex little timeline graphic there, but we are happy to answer any questions you may have about that. And this timeline is also on our website as an FYI, and we'll be sending out these slides. So you will have all those dates readily accessible. And then a little bit about review criteria, kind of what we're looking for in a successful Civic Innovation Core member. Here are a couple of tips and tricks to kind of make your application stand out. So technical ability, first and foremost, we do require Civic Innovation Core members to have a certain level of technical capability. This will just allow you to be successful on the projects we are matching people with. So on your application, it would be better for you to show and not just tell us. You can include links to your portfolio, GitHub, or class projects to kind of highlight the technical capabilities that you have. Please list any relevant frameworks, languages, and skills in your resume. This will help us better understand what technical capacity you have. It will help us better match you to projects if you were to make it to that stage of our application. So make sure you are definitely highlighting your technical ability. Our application consists of short answers, so please use recent personal examples to illustrate your answers. Check for grammar and spelling errors, and above all else, be yourself. We're really looking to create a wonderful cohort experience for everyone, and that means lots of different perspectives and backgrounds. So highlight yourself, be yourself. We're really excited to learn more about you and hear about the work that you've done and why you're interested in being a core member. It is also important for Civic Innovation Core members to have people skills. So you're okay with ambiguity and not knowing all the information. You like working with others, including those who might not share your opinions. We've really found that successful Civic Innovation Core members are those who are flexible, adaptable, good at working on teams, things like that. So definitely highlight that in your application as well. And then some things that are less important to us when we're looking for Civic Innovation Core members: where you go to school, grades on your transcript, what you did in high school, things like that are definitely less important to us than the other things I just discussed. So highlight who you are, highlight your technical ability, and kind of use those short answers to really highlight who you are and what you'll contribute to the Civic Innovation Core. So that is some review criteria. And then in summary, some resources for you to learn a little bit more about the core and coding it forward. We will be sending these slides out again at the end, so you'll be able to click on the links. But Coding It Forward has a blog where we have stories of all sorts of different things, including an announcement about the Civic Innovation Core if you have not given that blog a read quite yet. We're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then we have a newsletter which you are encouraged to subscribe to, where you will get all updates about all programs and such on that. I know that was a lot of information, but we wanted to make sure we gave you everything you needed and that we saved some time at the end for questions. So thank you, Rachel, for answering the questions that have been coming in. But that is kind of the end of our overview of the program. We'll be around for more questions. And if you have any personal questions, please feel free to email us at recruiting@codingitforward.com. We are more than happy to answer any questions. We would ask first that you take a look at our website, make sure that none of your questions are answered on there. Scroll down to our frequently asked questions, make sure that none of your questions are answered there, and then feel free to email us with any specific personal questions you may have. But we just want to say thank you for being here and for being interested in this program. We're really excited to find our first cohort of Civic Innovation Core members. But Rachel and I will stick around to answer questions.
Yeah, we have quite a few that have rolled in, and my typing fingers cannot keep up with the chat, but I'm trying my best. So we'll start answering these live. So a few folks have asked questions about kind of our city and state preference and what it means to essentially rank one city or state partner over another in the application. So Ariana, could you elaborate a little bit more on why we have a preference, what the preference is meant for, and if a candidate does choose a particular city and state, does that mean they're still considered for others?
Yeah, that is a great question, and sorry for not covering that earlier. Thanks for pointing that out. So there is a section in the application that asks if you have a preference for a particular city or state. With this program, we think that it can be very important to match students who are in the specific locale with a host office in that locality. So that's just for people who may be from Boston, who kind of have a personal attachment experience with Boston, to share with us why they might be a great fit, why they may be really interested in working in that particular host office. That is a first, second preference, but we really, if you are prefacing something, we do ask that you kind of fill out a quick few sentences about why, so we can better understand why you are preferencing that. And that is no guarantee that you will be matched with that host office. That is for us to kind of better match if possible and find a good fit if you're a fit for a project that is being completed at that office, but it is in no way a guarantee that you will be matched with that host office. So please feel free to preference if you have strong reasons or roots in one of our host offices. But again, don't just preference for kind of you would like to work in New York. We really want that to be kind of thoughtful as to why you are interested in that specific host office. But again, no guarantee that you will be matched with that host office that you preference.
Great, thanks for answering that. There are also a few questions kind of about the differences between the Civic Digital Fellowship and the Civic Innovation Corps. So I'm wondering if you can tell folks kind of, why we launched the second program. Are there any differences? If so, what are they?
Yeah, great question. So the Civic Digital Fellowship is our 10-week paid internship program with federal government agencies. The main difference between that and the Civic Innovation Corps is that the Civic Innovation Corps is partnered with state and local offices. We think that there is really incredible work to be done in technology at the federal level, but also recognize how important state and local governments are in also providing services and resources to people who live in this country. And so we're really excited about being able to bring students to state and local governments this summer with the Civic Innovation Corps program. It is the first time that Coding It Forward has been able to kind of reach into state and local government. So that's why we're excited about it. And then as for the main differences, obviously you will be working in state and local government. It will be a little bit of a lower touch model in terms of the professional and community programming that Coding It Forward provides. This is mainly because host offices are really excited about kind of providing their own programming. But the main difference is the level of government you will be working at. And it is a bit of a lower touch model compared to our federal program. There will still be a community and a cohort experience. It will just be a little lighter touch than how involved Coding It Forward is with the federal program.
Great. Thanks so much for answering that. Also, folks, if you are in the Q&A, I am seeing a lot of the same questions come up. There is actually a great feature that Zoom has where you can actually upvote questions instead of having to ask the same question multiple times. It just makes it a little bit more visible for our team to understand that you're eager to know about a particular question over another. But for now, I'm going to continue kind of going in order. If I'm skipping over your question, that's most likely because it was already answered in this presentation, but we'll kind of loop back to it. Someone's wondering if they applied to the fellowship and they want to edit the responses that they shared with us, what can they do about that?
Yes, you are welcome to select no if you feel like you have something more to highlight. If you've worked on a new project that you feel is not captured in your resume, we'd encourage you to select yes. I think that's going to make the process easier for everyone. But you can select no if you would like. We'd encourage you to select yes. But again, please only select no if you have something substantial that you'd like to highlight that is different, that will not be captured in the resume or transcript, because we are asking that you re-upload those with the Civic Innovation Corps application. And we assume that most of the short answer responses will remain the same. So we'd encourage you to select yes if you applied for the fellowship. If you feel like there is anything substantial that would change, then go ahead and click that no button. We strongly encourage the yes.
And someone else wants to know if applying for the fellowship will affect their core application in any way.
Well, the fellowship application is already closed, so you cannot apply for it if you haven't already. If you are currently in the pipeline, it will affect it in no way, but I will again kind of reference what I mentioned earlier, which is there is no guarantee that you will reach the same stage of our pipeline with the Civic Innovation Corps where you might be with the fellowship. So, and that the timeline is substantially later. So please be aware of that as you apply.
Great. Let me see where we are at. A lot of different questions about kind of technical skills. What level of professional experience do I need to have? How many examples of projects do I need to show in my application? So kind of what are we looking for in terms of experience?
Yeah, I think we would encourage you to, if you're kind of uncertain about technical experience, we would encourage you to apply instead of not applying. But I think there is some base level of certain technical skills required. If you're applying for a software engineering position, we'd love to be able to see classwork or coursework and some projects to highlight what your technical capability is there. If you don't have a GitHub or you don't have a portfolio, that's totally fine. Use your resume to tell us about any class projects you may have worked on. Make sure you include kind of the technical languages or skill sets that you used on those projects. And you can also add to that, add some color to that in your short answer questions as well. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say kind of like you need to know Java and Python just because so many of our projects are different in terms of the technical capabilities, but just highlight that as best as you can in the resume and the short answer.
Yeah, and seconding Ariana, there's a few more kind of questions that came in related, but we don't look for any specific technical skill set. It's not like we have a harsh requirement if you're going to be a software engineering core member that you need to know Python and Java. That's not how it works. We have lots of different projects that we're going to be placing folks on. So, if you're really talented at front end, there might be a really great front end role for you. If you're someone who really cares about databases, then there might be a really great role for you. We're looking for people who bring all sorts of perspectives and skill sets when it comes to each of the 4 categories that we outlined. So don't sweat it if you feel like you're weaker on a kind of specific coding language or, particular framework. Let's see. There are lots of questions.
I'm trying.
The first one at the top, since this is the oldest, how is the first interview different than the second one? So if you're not familiar with how our interview process works, kind of that process essentially looks like our team reviews applications. If you kind of make it past our initial review, which is looking at things like professional skill set, background, reviewing your short answers, then you'll have an opportunity to meet with a member of our team, probably Ariana, myself, or Chris. And we will just chat with you, do a behavioral interview, so ask you questions about how you've handled various work situations, etc. The second interview would actually be with one of our host offices, and that interview would be not necessarily a coding interview or a whiteboarding interview or anything like that, but it would be an opportunity to discuss the technical work that you'd be expected to do as a core member, and ultimately would be a conversation about how you would fit into the team. There are also lots of questions about kind of like, what are the project differences? How do the state and city projects differ?
Yeah.
Are multiple people placed on each project? So a few things. First, in full transparency, this is our first time ever running the core. It's a brand new program that we just launched this year. So we're still sorting out some of those details with our host teams. But if the fellowship kind of serves as an example, most agency teams will be hiring kind of multiple fellows in their offices, but it doesn't mean, or excuse me, multiple core members in their offices, but it doesn't mean that those core members are working on the exact same project or task. So we don't intend to, have only one person placed in the city of Austin, for example, but there'll be multiple placements, but not necessarily kind of on the same project. Cool. Some questions about kind of like, are you like, is the offer binding?
Yeah.
If you accept, or what is the deadline to accept or reject? So a few things to consider here. If you are being considered as a fellow currently, that timeline is going to be much earlier than the core. So you're probably going to hear back from us about a particular placement or offer for the fellowship much sooner than you will for the core, just because we're still very much in the early stages of the application process. We anticipate that all offers for the core will be extended at the latest by the end of March is our current goal. If you do receive an offer, no, you're not forced to accept the offer. That's definitely your decision as to whether or not you want to become a core member. But what I will say is if you accept, the core and that's what you decide to do with your summer, we would anticipate you withdrawing from any other internship programs that you might be considering. So please, if this is not your first choice, don't accept our offer because we wouldn't want to take a spot from someone who's really excited about joining the program. Cool. Lots of questions rolling in.
If you missed anything in our presentation, we will be sending slides and recordings out. So just an FYI there.
It looks like there's still some questions about international students. So yeah, we're very excited. This is the first time we've been able to offer an internship to international students, but I'm just going to reiterate because it seems like some people might have missed kind of the first few minutes of this call. Yes, we are accepting applications from international students with the requirement that you be authorized to work in the United States, and we are unable to sponsor visas. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to email us, but we will not be sponsoring visas. And you also need to be located in the United States for the duration of the program. So if you don't have a permanent address in the United States, this might not be the best program for you because we're not going to be sponsoring travel to the country. We're not going to be, putting up students into housing for the summer. So please make sure you do have a place to stay within the country if you are planning on applying.
Still some questions. Oh no, go ahead, Rachel.
Go ahead. No, please.
Yeah, still some questions about if you're referred to a project but not selected, will you have an opportunity to interview for a different project? This kind of depends. Sometimes there are projects that we are still able to match people to, sometimes there are not. So you will be given more information on that as we kind of get closer to that part of the pipeline, if you were to make it to that kind of second round interview. But yes, sometimes there is an opportunity for you to be referred to another project. That is just not always guaranteed.
Great. There are some questions about how does the matching process work? So it's a factor of things. So first of all, of course, we're asking people to put down their preferences if there are any. So, like Ariana said, if you're from Boston, you're really passionate about, helping your fellow Bostonians, that's great. We're very excited about that. But in addition, of course, you need to have the skill set to be able to work on projects in the city of Boston. So if your skill set's a fit, we'll definitely try and refer you to projects that are available in that geography. But if we find that you have a very unique skill set or for some reason there aren't kind of projects offered in that location, we will try and refer you to a different kind of post office that we're working with. But what we look at is essentially applicant skill sets, your ranking, your preferences for, which subject matter area you want to be working on for the summer, and then also location. And then likewise, we take a look at what our host offices are looking for in candidates and try and find a match accordingly. Cool. There's a few logistical questions. So if we don't get to those, please, again, take a look at the slides because they were stated earlier in the call, but you can also feel free to email us if we don't get to your kind of question now.
If I was not chosen for the fellowship, how can I receive feedback on my application? Unfortunately, we do not have the team capacity or the time running our two programs to give feedback on applications. So unfortunately, we cannot provide feedback on that. We would just encourage you to kind of add any color that you may have missed with the fellowship application or other projects or opportunities that you've been able to work on since applying for the fellowship.
There's still a few questions about providing additional links or context in terms of class projects. One question in particular about those projects being private. So if your projects are private, we totally understand. That's an academic consideration from your university. If you don't have anything to share, that's okay. We can't do much about that, but would definitely encourage you, if you have any side projects or things that you've tinkered with, please feel free to share those as well. They don't have to be class projects. They don't have to be full blown out kind of really super highly developed things. We just kind of like to see what you've been up to. And if you left kind of that answer blank and you don't understand what we are looking for, that would be things like your GitHub. You don't really need to provide your LinkedIn. It's just another form of your resume, which we already have. But if you have a personal website, a blog, something like that, where you think there is something online that represents you kind of beyond your resume and transcript, we'd love to see it.
Will the offices be providing the hardware to do remote work, or will we be in charge of getting our own supplies? This will kind of be a conversation we'll have with you if you were to be accepted as a Civic Innovation Corps member. We want to make sure everyone has access to everything that they need. So we'll work with you and your host office to determine whether you will need to provide your own material or if they will be able to provide you with hardware. So that question will be answered for you if you were to make it to that stage of our program.
Lucas asked a question of what is an example of a project a Corps member might be expected to work on? What are projects that have been done in the past? So as we've mentioned a few times now, this is a brand new program. We've never had Corps members in the past. So unfortunately, I don't have projects to point you to at the moment, but there's lots of exciting work that's happening in all of these cities and states. I know there's going to be quite a bit of kind of COVID-19 related relief work that's happening, but also transit related work, city planning related work. There's going to be lots of cool opportunities to dive into the services and policies that these teams work on. So someone asked if we can share acceptance statistics for the fellowship. I don't really think that's relevant here just because this is a different program and has a different number of spots available and different number of candidates applying. So if I gave you the fellowship number, it's not going to be at all representative of the Corps. So just know that we are planning on placing about 50 Corps members this first year is what we're looking at. We do anticipate that it'll probably be a highly selective application process as our fellowship is, but again, because this is a new program, we don't have any historical data to provide in terms of acceptance rates, previous numbers of Corps members, etc. Cool. Alexandra's wondering, could you highlight some examples of what we might do for fun as a Corps, like the book club, etc.? Yeah, for sure. So this will probably be modeled after a lot of the fellowship programming that we've done, but we've done so many things, particularly during kind of this time when we're all virtual. But yes, we do monthly book clubs. We've also done game nights. We've had a company come in and do a trivia night that was really fun. We've also done one of those like live paint classes where we provide kind of everyone with painting supplies and there's an instructor. So there are lots of fun opportunities. We also do have funding if Corps members have ideas as well that we're happy to discuss with you. I know we've also done some movie screenings in the past. I'm trying to think what else. Honestly, a lot of folks just enjoy informal game nights. Those seem to happen both with our team organizing and and fellows in the past. So there's lots of fun opportunities to get to know other folks. And we always have a lot of creative community members who also bring great ideas to the table as well. Curious to know how or why you came up with these partners. Yeah, that's a great question because it might seem pretty random if you are not on our team. So these 10 teams came to us from a variety of different connections that we had, but all of them have kind of local, or excuse me, innovation and technology folks already working with them, either on the local or state level. So something that was really important to us is that we weren't placing core members in a place where they wouldn't be supported from a technical perspective. We understand that you're, of course, still students. There are going to be times when you don't know the answer to something. We want to make sure that you have the guidance that's necessary to be successful in an internship. So these 10 cities and states that we're working with all have really phenomenal teams of folks who have great technical knowledge, have great local innovation knowledge, and are very excited about bringing you into their ecosystems. Cool.
Let's see.
There's a few kind of personal questions. So if you're curious about like particular eligibility questions and things like that, please do email us. I'll put our email again in the chat, but it's recruiting@codingitforward.com. Ariana and I personally answer every single email that comes to that inbox. So if we don't answer you right now, it's not because we're ignoring you, but just because our answer isn't relevant to the couple hundred people who are on the call. So please redirect your question there.
Let's see. What does a day as a member of the program look like? Great question. Pretty, it will be remote, so pretty standard. You will be working on your project with your host office as a full-time intern, typically 9 to 5. We do account for time zone differences. I am in the West Coast, Rachel is on the East Coast, and we have fellows all across, or core members all across the country. So we will account for that. So you'll typically be working on your project, attending any meetings you're asked to attend, presenting any deliverables you're asked to deliver. And then as we've discussed, kind of the professional and community programming that Coding It Forward also organizes may happen kind of throughout your day and the evening. So aside from your work, you may be engaging with the community and different professionals in the space, but typically working on your project and engaging with your host office team.
There's a question, what does it mean in the application? What scale is your GPA weighted on? So every college, university, et cetera, has different scales for evaluating their students. It can be like a 4.0 scale, a 5.0 scale. I've seen some other interesting ones. I think there's 100-point scales at some universities. So just trying to understand what your GPA is out of. So if you have, let's say, like a 3.1 and you put out of 100, that's obviously wrong. So we want to make sure that we're just getting an understanding for how your GPA compares to the scale that it's on. But also don't worry, GPA is frankly not a huge consideration for our evaluation process.
Thank you, Carson, for liking our cute title. Rachel, do you have any specifics as to why it was the core instead of?
I think we were inspired by some other kind of national service models, and this is our first time again expanding geographically. But if you look at other programs like the Peace Corps, Teach for America Corps, there's other corps. My brain is, sorry, it's late. There are other national service corps as well. We felt that it better represented kind of the movement that we're trying to create with this program, which is expanding our opportunity more broadly across the country, placing folks as part of a larger movement and as part of a larger group of people dedicated to this work. Whereas the fellowship is centralized in DC, everyone's in the same place in non-COVID times, et cetera. So I think that distinguishing factor will be a little bit more obvious when we're not, virtual, but that was kind of our thought process behind it.
Is there more weight on technical skills or community work? We do require some level of technical capability, as mentioned previously, but the community work is also important to us as part of the application. So I wouldn't say there's like, we weight 50% this, 20% that. Just highlight all of that relevant stuff in your application. But we do look for both. We think both are very important in how we kind of screen for a Civic Innovation Corps member.
Sally asked, are there learning outcomes, formal or informal, for Corps members after completing the program? There's nothing formal that our team requires, but I will say, I think a lot of that learning is going to happen kind of informally across the course of the summer. We bring in a lot of speakers as part of our professional programming. So you get to hear from lots of different leaders in this space. And we're going to have a really awesome focus, particularly on state and local challenges. And so I think that's going to be one huge learning opportunity that I know other students involved in our programs have really enjoyed. Also, a lot of different kind of mentorship opportunities, both with our team. We do a lot of personal one-on-one kind of job training in terms of reviewing your resume, helping you prep for interviews, finding other career opportunities. And then, of course, I think there's lots of opportunities to learn from the team that you're placed with, whether that's learning about a new local or state context, learning new skills, learning about government and delivery, and making products and services work better for people. So while we're not going to expect any sort of kind of formal report or formal checklist at the end of the program, I think there's tons of learning that happens along the way. Someone asked, when should we expect to hear back? Our team's moving as fast as we can. As you might have noticed, we're a pretty tiny and nimble team. So we are reviewing applications every day. We are hoping to get back to folks in the next few weeks, hopefully no later than kind of the end of this month, early March, for next steps with our team, and then hopefully beginning the host agency interview process shortly after that.
Our application is considered on a rolling basis. It is a pretty tight timeline, so rolling basis in a 2-week application cycle is kind of day by day. So yes, applying earlier is better, but because it is a 2-week timeline and we're hoping to review in a very short amount of time, if you apply, you're not going to hear back the next day, but we do hope to kind of get back to people in the order they applied. So yes, earlier is always better in my opinion. So answer for Connor.
Cool. Madeline has 2 questions. First, are the interviews the host offices evaluated differently than how Coding It Forward evaluates our application? So yes, Coding It Forward has its own internal processes. So we have a pretty standardized process that we've tweaked over the course of the last few years, where we evaluate your resume and your portfolio and your application on one particular rubric. That way our team is standardized across our grading practices. Your interview is also kind of documented on a different kind of rubric and note-taking outline. And then host agencies work individually. So there's not like a standardized interview that happens across each host agency, which makes sense to us because, for example, Utah and New Jersey are not necessarily working on the same projects and might not necessarily have the same questions of the candidates that they're working with. So again, we don't expect kind of whiteboarding interviews, coding interviews, anything like that, but there will be questions about your technical background and expertise.
Is there an orientation beforehand to get to know the rest of the core members. There is not a formal orientation, but we do have, or in terms of like a multiple day orientation, but Coding It Forward does do an orientation ahead of the program starting to get you up to speed as to how things will work for the course of the 10 weeks. And we do try to hold an event for core members to meet each other. You'll meet our team. And again, there will be programming throughout the course of the Civic Innovation Core for you to get to know your cohort and also interface with our team. So there will be a small kind of orientation. Obviously, on Zoom, we don't want to be keeping people on there for a super long time, but you will get to meet our team more fully and understand what you're stepping into before you do. I think we have no open questions.
Awesome. Well, there are a few maybe more questions that'll trickle in over the next few minutes, and we're happy to stay on the line to answer those, since we know this is a new opportunity and there's lots of questions flying around about it. But if you do feel like your questions were adequately answered, please feel free to hop off. I know it is getting late, at least on the East Coast, and perhaps it's dinner time on the West Coast.
You saw the sunset on me over here, but yes.
But thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you do have any personal questions, you can feel free to email us. It's recruiting@codingitforward.com. I also dropped that in the chat. We'll be sharing out this recording as well as the slides that we use this evening with all of you, hopefully as soon as tomorrow is our goal. But again, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and we're happy to help you.
And we appreciate the thanks. We would ask that you please hold off in sending that in the Q&A, just so we don't get bombarded with things that we think are questions, but we really do appreciate your thanks, and thank you for being here. If you're currently in a boot camp, how to showcase, tell that in your application. It will ask you in the application what kind of academic background or technical background you're coming with, so you can put that in there. And then in lieu of a transcript, given that boot camps may not have a formal transcript, we ask that maybe you upload kind of a PDF document with the course that you took or kind of what technical skills you developed and worked on in that course. So that'd be a great way to kind of highlight what that boot camp entailed and the technical skills that you have because of it.
Cool. I'm still seeing 50 or so folks on the line. So I'm going to assume you maybe have a question for us if you're still hanging out, but otherwise, please feel free to jump off, as we said earlier, and we'll hang on for a few more minutes.
Over 100 questions answered.
Kept us busy tonight. Cool. Well, I am seeing folks fall off pretty quickly now. So again, please feel free to reach out at any time with questions. All of our eligibility criteria, benefits, things like that are listed on our website as well. So feel free to use that as a resource too. But again, we'll be following up shortly with the recording and the slides, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.